Hello and welcome back to the Scenario 7 podcast. My name is Sam and today I'm joined by my two lovely co-hosts. It's Joe Roberts and Robert Constantine. How are you two doing?
I'm doing well, Sam. How are you?
I'm all good, mate. How are you, Robert?
I'm great, thank you, Sam. You all right?
Yeah, all good. I mean, Robert is today sporting a new laptop. So if you're thinking, why is the picture squeaky clean?
Why do I look so good?
Yeah, I mean,
it's
mate,
just a laptop.
Nah, you look good anyway, mate. Don't put yourself down. But yeah, today we are here for a Saudi Arabian Grand Prix preview. We are coming into the second race of the season and the second time we're racing in Saudi Arabia. It's a race of seconds. But first of all, before we get into talking about the track and last year, we're going to go back and play Have I Got F1 News for You? This is where we look at a headline and Robert and Joe have got to try and guess what the missing word in the headline I read out is. And the headline this week is from the F1 website itself. It is technically an article, but it's a video also. So, guys, shout out with what you think it is. I'll read it out twice. So it is watch porpoising demonstrated with a blank. So that is watch porpoising demonstrated with a blank. What do you think the missing word is?
Don't know. Paint? I don't really know. It doesn't really make sense. I don't know.
Not paint.
Spoon.
Boom. Spot on. You are.
Is it spoon?
It actually is spoon. Robert has got it completely correct.
I swear I've not seen anything related to that.
That is
wow.
An unbelievable guess. The full headline being watch porpoising demonstrated with a spoon. You're correct. Formula One technical expert Albert Fabrega demonstrated the porpoising effect with a spoon. Porpoising is when an F1 car bounces up and down, a phenomenon caused by an increase, then a sudden decrease in downforce. So the question I want to pose to you guys after this headline is, we've seen it affect F1 cars in testing. We've seen it affect F1 cars in the first race of the season. But do you think this will be a season-long issue for teams, or do you think that teams will soon find a setup to remove the problem or at least reduce the effects? Joe, coming to you first.
I've got a feeling it's going to affect the cars with less downforce, so as in the McLarens, the Williams, and obviously I think the Mercedes as well. I think that they've got a good car, but I don't think they got a fantastic floor, so that's why the porpoising happened. So I think it'll be, in terms of Mercedes, I think it'll be an easy fix, and I think again, as I think we talked about last, in the review of Bahrain Grand Prix, I think it'll be a short fix for to the European season, but for like McLaren, Williams, even like Aston Martin, I think it'll be a long-term, I think it'll be a very long-term effect for them, and it'll be hard for them to find solutions until probably after the summer break. You maybe see the porpoising stop, but yeah, I think it'll be a issue.
Yeah, what about you, Robert? What are you thinking? You got the unbelievable guess, guessing the headline, but what do you think about porpoising? Season-long issue, or do you think it'll be sorted soon?
I have to agree with Joe. I think it will be solved at some point. It's not going to be a season-long issue. It's probably not one of the more major issues that we've had in terms of aero development. It was pretty bad for some of the teams. Other teams have almost fixed it entirely. So it's just a matter of time. I don't think it will affect every single team throughout the season. McLaren might struggle to find a solution, but I don't think that's the only issue that they've got at the moment. So they're probably not going to focus too much on it for the moment. But yeah, there's literally not much else I can say. We'll just see. But they're probably going to fix it by summer.
Yeah, I think you're probably right, and yes, not the main issue for McLaren, who do have quite a few issues going on. But now let's move on to the main part of our preview, looking at the track. So this is the Jeddah Corniche circuit. It is the world's fastest street circuit, with 79% of the race being at full throttle. It is 6.2 kilometers long, the second longest race in the calendar, second to Spa, 50 laps with 27 corners, most on the calendar. So it's record-breaking in many ways. But what are your thoughts on the track, Robert?
I actually like it. I think it's a very, very great track to drive. Obviously, I've only got the experience from the games, so I can't really tell you what it's like to be behind the wheel. But it just looks, it doesn't look, it is very fast. It is the fastest. It's something that we've seen before in some of the street circuits, mostly Baku. It's got some long straights and then a bunch of high-speed corners. It's very difficult. It's not an easy track to master, and we've seen it last year. It wasn't easy for all the drivers. And in terms of racing with the new cars, if they're actually able to, race closely as they're supposed to, I think it's going to be quite entertaining. Last year was a brilliant race from multiple points of view. It brought us drama as well, so that's probably why we all remember it. But I think the track itself has the potential to be a very good Grand Prix track, and I can't wait to actually watch the race if it goes on.
Joe, what do you think about the track?
I think as I agree with Robert, I think it's a very good track. Obviously, I hope the new aeros will improve like the racing, but it can also be like maybe a safety issue as well, in terms of, like, for example, like last week you basically had 6 cars within a very small like gap, so it could be a safety issue in the fact that somebody stupidly dives down the inside, takes somebody out, and then suddenly 6 cars are in a wall. So yeah, I think they fixed some of the safety issues from last season, which is surprising considering the short turnaround that has been. But yeah, the track reminds me a bit of Valencia, which was a phenomenal track, very fast, and yeah. So yeah, I do like this track, but hopefully the new regulations make it even more interesting and chaotic.
I mean, last year's race was chaotic. If it's more chaotic than that, then that's going to be one crazy race. But yeah, I think we are set for another action-packed race. One of the interesting things, it's the only street circuit to have a banked corner. And it's not a very big banking, let's be real, but banked turn 13 is certainly an interesting point. And yeah, it is just so fast. Last year's race is so funny because we did have, we're going to go on to talk more about it, but we did have a crash due to the speed of it. But the majority of DNFs actually came from quite coming out of a low speed part of the track, where the track just got narrower and there was a lot of cars side by side. It didn't quite work out for quite a few drivers. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the new cars, the new aero. Of course, it'll be easier to follow. As you said, Joe, interesting from a safety point of view what happens, but I think the track is, they've worked on that and it's much more safer. And yeah, I'm excited to see what this year's race brings. It's certainly a fun track, having driven it also on the F1 2022 game. But talking about the F1 22 game, we did forget this segment last week, and that is all on me. and I do apologise, but now it's time to throw it over to future Robert for his track guide using the F1 2022 game.
Hello and welcome back to Jeddah. This is a Scenario 7 track guide, and we're back for the 2022 season. It's the same old Saudi Arabia, but it's the second race this season, not the second to last. It is, however, still the fastest street track ever, and coming in at 6.1 kilometers in length, it's also one of the longest, second just after Spa. Not only that, it's also number 1 in terms of corners. It has 27 to be precise. We start our lap with the slowest combination of turns on the entire track. Turns 1 and 2 form a short chicane, which can easily fool you into understeering into that left side of the wall. It's pretty much flat out after that through turns 4, 5 and 6. Small lift into 7, and then downshift 1 gear in 8 and another in 9. Engine braking is quite useful around here, and that's one of the reasons why cold brakes are an issue in Jeddah. This run up to the left-hander of turn 13 is just one of the key areas where drivers will have their foot planted on the accelerator pedal. They will go flat out through about 80% of the lap, which is mind-blowing. Sector 2 is yet another fast portion where precision is key. Turns 14 through 15 and 16 are flat out, brake for 17, and then keep the foot planted, sprinting into the left-hander of turn 22. This marks the beginning of the final sector. Not much to say about this really, do the same as before, keep your foot down and follow the curbs, nothing can go wrong. The line, however, is very important, so make sure you follow the classic outside, inside, outside technique into turn 27 to carry as much speed as possible. And after you've opened your DRS, you'll be across the line in no time, having completed a lap of the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix.
Thanks for that, Robert. Now, let's look at last season's race in Saudi Arabia. As I mentioned, it was the first race in Saudi Arabia, and boy, did it live up to expectations. First of all, starting on Saturday, we had drama. Lewis Hamilton did get pole, but wow, Max Verstappen was so close to putting in probably the qualifying lap of his career. He had a purple first and second sector, and just, I think it was the last quarter or second to last quarter, he hit the wall and just ruined his chances of getting the fastest lap. So massive drama on the Saturday, and what could have been a historic lap. Moving on to Sunday, the drama started on lap 10 when Mick Schumacher put his car in the wall, deploying the safety car, which was upgraded to a red flag after the Mercedes had pit, which caused quite a bit of controversy, though there was a lot more controversy to come. After the first standing restart, Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen were involved in an incident where Verstappen overtook Hamilton off the racetrack before shortly after a crash involving Sergio Perez, Charles Leclerc, Nikita Mazepin and George Russell resulted in a second red flag, which brought a moment which was memed to the hills, where Michael Massey had a little proposal to the Red Bulls, thought he'd propose what to do in this scenario after Max Verstappen overtook off the racetrack. And it ended up for the second restart, Ocon lining up in first, Hamilton in second, and Verstappen in third. And then on lap 37, Hamilton made a move on Verstappen. Verstappen forced Hamilton off while also going off and gaining an advantage. The amount of going off at this corner from Verstappen was crazy. On the same lap, Verstappen tries to give the place back, but ends up checking Hamilton after a misunderstanding. Let's call it that, because it was let's call it that for good time's sake. On the same after this brake check, on the lap 42, Verstappen gives the place back, but re-overtakes at the next corner. Max then gets a 5-second penalty. Lewis overtakes him anyway. Bottas overtakes Ocon on the last straight to pip him to third. Heartbreak for the Frenchman. And it finished Hamilton first, Verstappen second, and Bottas third, with it being the second race of the season, teeing up an exciting finale with winner takes all in Abu Dhabi. And we're not going to talk about that because that's a whole different podcast. But what is your fond memory of, or maybe not necessarily fond, but what is one of your memories of last season's race, Joe?
Well, I think it goes into the controversial fashion. I think Max brake checking Hamilton, as in I look back on the incident now, and it kind of makes me think maybe he should have been disqualified from that race for that that kind of dangerous maneuver, I'm going to say, because I think looking at it, if Lewis Hamilton didn't swerve and just went into Max, it would have DNF'd, and I think the points, the championship would have gone his way. So I don't know. For me, that was the not the fond memory, I think, but as in the most memorable, I think you can say from that. Obviously, Sam has gone through many lists of controversial and fond memories in his summary, but for me, that one in particular is a memory which I think the FIA and the race director could have done a better job, but we won't get into that. But yeah, that was not fond memory, but the moment of that race.
Very interesting. That is a big statement. Should have been disqualified. Robert, what is your memory of last season's race?
I kind of have to talk about the two red flags, especially the first one, because the first one was very controversial as well. So you have Schumacher who just loses control, hits the wall. We get that safety car. Mercedes rush to the pits, and then we get a red flag, which for some people was very good because Verstappen got a free pit stop pretty much, and he ended up in front of both Mercedes, which at the time a lot of people questioned Michael Massey and the stewards on why would they change that safety car into a red flag and not just red flag it instantly. But it's not that easy to judge because they couldn't have known what the damage to the wall actually was before they went to check. So yeah, the decision made sense in the end after we had actually time to think about that. But at the time, it felt strange. And then the second red flag, it was just a massive crash. You had Perez, Charles Leclerc, Mazepin, and Russell, just all DNFing in that one crash, and that leads to another red flag, which again we've got Verstappen in first after that red flag. So Verstappen was very lucky in that race. He could have done a lot. Let's just leave it at that. But instead, we know what happened. Joe talked about that. But yeah, the red flags were just incredible. They just completely changed that race from what would have been, a normal, maybe sort of boring race to an amazing long race as well, because it lasted a while, and very dramatic. So yeah, props to the red flags.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be interesting to see how many red flags of safety car we get this year, because I have a feeling we're going to get quite a few. But my memory of last season's race is not full of controversy. It's a happy memory, and that is Antonio Giovinazzi's last F1 points. The Italian Jesus, starting 10th, he stayed out of trouble, finishing 9th. What an achievement. That is an unbelievable finish in Alfa Romeo that was absolutely rubbish last year. I think we need to bring that up because this year it's a much better car. Last year was rubbish. Antonio Giovinazzi picking up some great points. Joe's not happy I've chosen him. He should still be in F1, but that's a conversation for another time. But yeah, I thought I'd celebrate Antonio Giovinazzi's last F1 points. We're not going to talk about how well he's doing in Formula E because that'll bring the mood right down. But yeah, thought I'd shout out to Antonio Giovinazzi, who is forever in our hearts as the Italian Jesus of F1. But
he isn't in mine. He isn't in mine.
Yeah, Joe's not as fond of Antonio Giovinazzi. That's fine. We all have our opinions. Let's move swiftly on to our predictions for this week, starting with looking at where we are on the predictions table after Bahrain. And in first place, unfortunately, it is Joe sitting on a massive 3 points. He did correctly predict the top 3 perfectly. So props to you. So 3 points, you're top of the leaderboard. In second place is me, getting 2 points. Again, none of the wacky predictions, only the person who came first in Leclerc and the person who came third in Hamilton was the one I got. In third is Robert on 0 points. And in fourth and fifth are Josh and Matt, who haven't done a preview yet, so also on 0 points. So Robert, you're above them. You're not rock bottom. So that is
I'm so good.
That is a massive positive, and I'm sure you're going to shoot up the leaderboard this week. First of all, we're going to get rid of one of the wacky predictions, that being first overtake, because of the fact that when I looked back at the race, I have seen the first few seconds of the race about 100 times trying to work out who overtook who first, and it is impossible. The time,
I'm pretty sure it was definitely Vettel, so give me a point.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think I'm gonna have to give you 1 point because Sebastian Vettel, from his COVID bed, just came up and overtook everyone first. But yeah, it was impossible. The timing sheets just spazzed out as they're new and not ideal there. But yeah, we're getting rid of that and we're replacing it with most overtakes. So that is the driver that gets the most overtakes in the race, and then specifically how many they get for a bonus points. So let's go through the wacky predictions first. I'll start first off with first accident. I'm thinking Daniel Ricciardo, lap 1. I think that this race is going to be carnage from the off. And I don't know what's going to happen with Daniel, but I don't think it's going to be good. I think he's going to be involved in the first accident on lap 1. Now on to first safety car / red flag, Daniel Ricciardo, lap 1. It's just going to be carnage from the start. People are going to hit each other, and it's going to cause probably a red flag because you don't really get safety cars in Saudi Arabia from the one race we've seen. But yeah, I think it'll cause a red flag. I think it'll be Daniel Ricciardo, lap 1. First pit stop, I've gone for Charles Leclerc, lap 1. So there's a theme here for lap 1, but I think he will stop to change strategy on lap 1 because of he sees a red flag or safety car, most likely a red flag, and is like, I'm going to make the first tyre change because I'm first. And if there is a red flag and people change their tyres, it will probably be the person in first who we give it to. So with the fourth prediction is first blue flag, and I've given it to Nicholas Latifi. Last week I said it was going to be Zhou Guanyu, and I didn't quite realise how good the Alfa Romeo was going to be and how good Zhou Guanyu was going to be. But having seen the Williams, it looks pretty naff. So I'm giving it to Nicholas Latifi, as he's probably the worst of the two drivers on lap 43. And then with most overtakes, I've gone for Mick Schumacher on lap 7. I think he's just going to stay out of trouble and and on lap 7 with 7. Yeah, I saw the look Joe gave me there and saw I made a mistake. Mick Schumacher with 7 overtakes. He's just going to weave through the carnage of people hitting walls left, right, and centre and get the most overtakes. But Robert, what are your wacky predictions?
Right. First of all, I don't think we should count that red flag as a first pit stop. That's a bit of a stretch.
Is it? If they're changing tyres, it's a pit stop.
It's not a pit stop, is it?
They're pitting and stopping.
Oh, Robert, it's just making the rules up.
Yes, that is true.
That is true, yeah. Right, we'll give it to you then. Okay, first accident. I'll stick with Magnussen on lap 1, just as I did last week. Eventually, it has to come true.
It will come true.
The first red flag will actually come a bit later in the race. And I think it'll be Mick Schumacher on lap 10, replicating his performance from last season. The first pit stop, Esteban Ocon, lap 15. First blue flag is Nicholas Latifi on lap 38. And then most overtakes, George Russell with 11.
Ooh,
and I think Mercedes will have a shambles of a strategy again. George will find himself fighting from the back a couple of times at least. I think he'll rack up 11 overtakes.
That is bold. It's interesting to see that the average pit stop times came out this week, and Mercedes are bottom with almost 4 seconds per pit stop. So they are struggling from a pit stop point of view, and their car isn't that competitive. But when it gets more competitive, they're going to have to up that to stand more of a chance. But now onto you, Joe. What do you think for these predictions?
Okay, as I look over here, I think is it first crash?
First accident.
First accident, I think Tsunoda on lap 1. But I don't think that will cause a red flag. Then Stroll on lap 1 will cause a red flag and stoppage of the race, just because he might, hit Stroll. Not hit Stroll, hit Tsunoda, but I'm not going to put that in because Sam's done a very sneaky thing where you have to say 2 drivers, so I'm not doing that. So it's...
you don't have to say 2 drivers. What do you mean?
Robert got penalised last week for saying
that's
drivers in the same thing. So
yeah, I'm just giving you more of an opportunity to get points, because if Magnussen crashed into Bottas, but then Magnussen's involved in a crash and Bottas wasn't, you wouldn't get the point. Meanwhile, if you just said Magnussen was involved, and Magnussen crashes into whoever, you do get the point. So that's why I'm saying it's best to just say 1 driver for each.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying 1 driver. That's why I'm saying 1 driver. So Stroll will be part of the red flag. So I'll get 1 point on lap 1. Sainz will pit on lap 13, a lucky number. 13. Onto some tyres. Lapped will be Ricciardo, as in, I think either be the McLarens or the Aston Martins that got lapped. So it could be Vettel because of COVID and that, but I'm gone for Ricciardo. And then Ocon with the most overtakes with 4.
What lap is Daniel Ricciardo getting laps?
How many laps are Cyril?
50.
32.
There we go. That's a nice early lapping. I love he's gonna pit onto some tyres. The analysis there from you, Joe, was superb. I absolutely love it. But now let's predict our top 3 for the race. Joe is a bit of a pro at this. 3 predictions right out of 3 so far for Bahrain. So me and Robert need to catch up. Joe, I'll come to you first. What is your top 3 prediction?
Yeah, as I'm top of the fantasy and the this prediction, well, I'm gonna go quite strong here. I'm gonna go with Leclerc. It's gonna win it, P1. I think he's going to turn, as in the Ferraris apparently in the Italian newspaper said they were conservative on the engine. So I think they'll turn up the wick on it and dominate the Honda. So I think Leclerc will be P1. P2, I think it'd be Sainz, just due to the fact that the Ferrari engine will be stronger. And then Max Verstappen, P3. But as again, Robert could say, the Mercedes could get there, but I think the porpoising issues will affect them. So I'm going to go for a Red Bull in Max.
Robert, what is your podium?
Mine is literally the other way around. I think Red Bull will do well. I think that Honda engine will kick in. That VTEC will kick in at Saudi Arabia, and Verstappen will win the race with Perez in second. So 1-2 there for Red Bull, and then Charles Leclerc in third place.
Very interesting. I promise you, I hadn't seen Joe's predictions before this, but I have gone for the exact same as Joe. I've got Charles Leclerc in first. I think that the Ferrari look very strong. I think that, having read what Joe's read as well, the fact that they are supposedly turning up the engine, it could cause more problems potentially, but I think that they're going to be very quick. And the fact that Carlos Sainz, the man I've got in second, said that last week in Bahrain was the weekend he struggled most in with Ferrari, and he still came second. So I actually think there's a potential for him to come first. But I've got Leclerc first, Sainz second, and Verstappen in third, because I think the Red Bull look very quick and at the moment are Ferrari's biggest competition. And that wraps up our podcast previewing the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Remember to like, subscribe, download, whatever you need to do. Remember to follow us on socials. They're all linked down below. We will have a review for the race on Monday. So keep an eye out for that, and we'll see you then. Thank you, guys.